Thank you for joining the Travels with Kev podcast. We're here to get you on track to travel, whether you're a beginner getting started or an intermediate just stretching your travel legs. We are here to get you started. And by we, I mean me. I'm Kev, and I'll be your host for today. Are you wondering about tipping on Amtrak trains? Maybe you heard that you need to, but you don't know who gets one or how much to tip. If these questions cross your mind, this podcast is for you, and it will help guide you through this part of the Amtrak adventure. Tipping has been a hot topic on social media, so I sifted through the comments, added some thoughts of my own, and let's get started. First off, is it necessary to tip on Amtrak trains? The technical answer is no. But before we go too far, you should know that tipping does not have a set protocol among Amtrak passengers. Some passengers feel it is unnecessary, while others can't think of a better gesture. For me, I often tip, but not always. Further down, you will find out why, when, and to whom I tip. Unlike many U.S. service industry workers, Amtrak employees do not depend on their tips as part of their income. But tipping on Amtrak is a great way to thank them and show your appreciation for their efforts. If you're financially unable to tip, a sincere thank you and letting Amtrak know what a great job they did is appreciated. In the show notes, I included links to contact Amtrak so you can praise their employees. While tipping is not essential, if you require a little extra attention for whatever reason, tipping is a grand gesture to say thanks for the extra running around. Remember, these attendants are there for the whole car, and they're not your personal valet or servant. Be patient and understanding with their time. Who and when would get a tip along your journey? When and who should receive a tip is up to you. But these are the employees who tend to receive tips, and I'll help you let you know when I tip them. Car attendants, either coach or sleeper. Some people like to tip their attendants at the beginning of their adventure. I am not one of those. My belief is tipping needs to be earned and it's not just given. Looking at what other passengers say, they feel that tipping at the beginning is bribing their attendant for better service, and I do tend to agree. Usually I tip at the end of my trip, either right before I get off the train, as I'm getting off the train, or as they're cleaning up the car as we come into our final destination. My typical range for tipping a car attendant is anywhere between $5 and $20 a day based on the level of service and my budget, or your budget. Food service employees. I often tip at the end of a transaction, for example, after a meal in the dining car, or completing my transaction in the cafe. On occasion, I have had the same diner attendant for the whole day. In that case, I tip at the end of the day's last meal. Often, the standard food service rates of 15 to 20% are typical. If there are no prices, tip what you feel would be appropriate. Station staff. Some stations have red cap or agents that can help you get to and from the train. You are free to tip them with a few dollars per bag. Information to consider about Amtrak staff. Sleeping and coach attendants and food staff stay with you the whole trip, the exception of the Texas Eagle, which changed attendants in San Antonio. These employees are away from their homes and their families for 4 to 6 days at a time. For example, the California Zephyr crew is based out of Chicago. For example, the California Zephyr crews are based out of Chicago, traveling with you to Emeryville, California, spending the night, and then they return home, working the next day's train. These employees do a lot of work behind the scenes to make the trip the best that they can for you and your fellow passengers. For example, a sleeping car attendant can help you along your journey by making your beds and putting them away, assisting you with getting off the train, helping with reservations for meals, getting you the information you need along your journey, and more. They run and grab meals for some passengers and clean the car. There are few attendants that go above and beyond. Several times when I have taken the train to Charleston, South Carolina, when my sister lived out there, the train would come into the station around 4:50 in the morning. And often the car attendant would be knocking on my door around 4:20 or so. And often they had a cup of hot coffee. And it was the best cup of coffee I have ever tasted. Partially because it was early and it was appreciated. This could be a bit controversial, but this is when I don't recommend tipping on Amtrak. I know not everyone will agree with me on this point, which is fine, and do what you feel is right. Like any of my articles, these are just guidelines to follow. For the record, I tend to follow the motto of assume positive intents, and when in doubt, try to improve someone's day. I have worked in the service industry for well over a decade and a half. I know how hard the job can be. But a few times over my years of travel, I received inadequate service. To the point I would not tip. With this section, remember to keep your expectations in check. If you expect your car attendant to be your personal attendant, you will be disappointed because they have a whole car to maintain. It does take time for one person to make up 20 rooms if the Superliner car is full of passengers. Over my Amtrak trips, I've only had a few poor attendants who I refused to tip. For example, one time I hit the call button, the car attendant came to my room, looked at me, and walked away. So I ended up putting my bed down myself. One other time, an attendant adored me for my whole journey. Both times, I did report them to Amtrak. If they do well or poorly, I let Amtrak know. If they're in the middle of the road service, I tend to let things go. And I take things into consideration if it is busy or whatnot. But if we make eye contact and you ignore me, you're not getting a tip. I'll wrap up about tipping on Amtrak. It is your choice to tip or not. Tipping is a great way to say thanks to somebody who made your Amtrak adventure even better. While attendants do not expect it, let me rephrase that. While most attendants do not expect it, it is a pleasant gift. Don't worry if you can't afford to tip or if you can't afford to tip much. A sincere thank you and a great smile and that letting the attendant know how much you appreciated their service will go a long way. And also, if you get a chance, go online and let Amtrak know that you got great service. The managers do read this, and they do receive that feedback. I hope you enjoyed today's journey as we discussed tipping on Amtrak. While it's not the most exciting of topics, it is one that people have a lot of questions on. If you choose to tip or if you choose not to tip, the biggest thing you can do is just be nice to the attendants and your passengers. They really are working hard. Even though I might have had some poor car attendants along the way, most of them have made my trip so much better. I hope you enjoyed today's adventure as we talked about tipping on Amtrak. If you found value from this, please visit travelswithkev.com/value to see how you can give back. Also, too, don't forget to visit the website travelswithkev.com. There is a blog post that does go along with this, and the link to it is in the show notes. I hope you join us next time. Podcasts come out every other Wednesday. Thank you for joining me, and safe travels. Bye.